Welcome to Living the Smarter Science of Slim, where we provide a scientifically proven lifestyle for long-term health and fat loss by eating more and exercising less, but smarter.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that. Hi everyone, this is Carrie Brown and Jonathan Baylor. We're in Seattle and it's trying to snow and I'm freezing cold and Jonathan's happy. Welcome.
All true statements.
Yes.
Truth. This podcast is brought to you by the letter T and the word truth.
We love that. We
do.
love a bit of truth.
We are. And we're always interested in talking about truth here on the Smarter Science of Slim podcast. And a couple things to talk about truthy things to talk about today, Carrie. Some good FAQs. One of the FAQs is, Carrie, as you know, we talk a lot about eating more, but smarter. And when we talk about eating sane foods, a lot of non-starchy vegetables, nutrient-dense proteins, whole food fats, and low-sugar fruits, it's a lot more food than a lot of people are used to eating.
But you know, Jonathan, I have found that if I only eat sane foods, sometimes it can be hard to eat more. That
is exactly the question. The question that we hear is, what if I'm too full to eat 10 servings of non-starchy vegetables, X servings of nutrient-dense protein? What do I do then? What then? Am I failing? Should I eat until I'm uncomfortably full? I have failed the Smarter Science. The answer, folks, is no.
No.
It's
new all
rubbish.
Good. No new rubbish.
As a general rule of thumb, if you ever have a question like, if you think to yourself, oh, is this going to cause my sanity to fail? Oh, am I just like, oh, no. The answer to the question is no. Like, unless you're eating a piece of, like, a Hostess snack cake that you bought off the shelf, I mean, like, that stuff is poison. But other than that, you're all right. You're doing all right. Don't beat yourself up. You're doing all right. So specific to this, the general rule of thumb, and this is going to sound a bit crazy, is when you're actually hungry, and we'll talk about actual hunger here in a second, when you're actually hungry, eat sane foods, starting with non-starchy vegetables, nutrient-dense protein, and then finishing with whole food fats and low-sugar fruits until you are full, and then stop. And repeat. That's it. And if you feel the need to do that 10 times a day, then do it 10 times a day. If you feel the need to do that once or twice a day, do it once or twice a day. The body knows, a healthy body knows what it needs. And if you need any evidence for that, just look at the past couple 100,000 years of human existence. People ate when they're hungry, stopped when they weren't hungry anymore, and we had very low, if any, rates of obesity and very low, if any, rates of diabetes. A healthy body will regulate your appetite just like it regulates everything else. So, do you need to go out of your way to eat until you're uncomfortably full? Absolutely not. Just like you shouldn't be hungry, you shouldn't be uncomfortably full. Make sense?
It does. I find it easier to eat enough protein than I do non-starchy vegetables.
I know you do. And we've had conversations about that.
Any problem getting the protein?
That's because you're a you don't.
And it's not all bacon.
You haven't gone the non-starchy vegetable green shake to the extent that one. And to be clear, folks, I'll tell you, sitting down and eating with a fork 10 servings of non-starchy vegetables per day is pretty daggone hard. Unless you have a personal chef and a lot of time on your hands. Because just
I keep offering to come over and cook your beef liver, but I still haven't had an invite.
The sheer amount of chewing involved is likely too much for many people.
You say that, but because we had such a long break, that things have moved along in that I'm doing a lot more shakes now.
That's good.
Because I noticed that I'm really great at eating protein. I don't have any problem getting my protein requirements met at all.
Yeah.
And I find if I get home late at night, I'll go in the fridge and there's protein, I'll eat it and it's all good and then I'll go to bed. But so I have been actively doing the green smoothies with, pounds and pounds of spinach or kale or romaine in every day to try and redress the balance, because I do find the veggies harder than the protein.
Yes. I don't like to talk about requirements because the only requirement is to do what works for you. At the same time, the closest thing to a requirement when going sane is there's three basically. Way more non-starchy vegetables, ideally some of which are raw. Sufficient servings of 30 grams or more of high quality protein, and then sufficient servings of essential fats. What sometimes individuals do, like Carrie's expressed here, is it's really easy to eat protein, it's really easy to eat natural fats, and it's pretty easy to eat low sugar fruits. I mean, you get some fresh blueberries, and that's good stuff. That's good eating. So it would. Here's what not to do: get so full of everything except non-starchy vegetables that you have no room for non-starchy vegetables. Like, don't do that. That is not a good idea. You want to. There should be like a stack rank of non-starchy vegetables first, nutrient-dense protein second, and then whole food fats, and then low sugar fruits. And you should basically eat in that order. Otherwise, you'll get so full of the other stuff that you won't have room for the stuff above. So should you overstuff yourself? No, never, however. No, never, however. That just rolled off the tongue. You should ensure you're taking in those non-starchy vegetables, because one way to think about this is we want to take in the protein we've talked about because it's incredibly satisfying. It helps to heal our metabolism. It helps protect our muscles, all kinds of good stuff. Our body's made of protein, so it's a good idea to eat protein. And fat, of course, that's why it's a good idea to eat fat. And we've got to eat essential fats because it's like vitamins and minerals. But taking in, I'll call it a therapeutic dose of non-starchy vegetables, a lot of people find is one of the most transformative things they've ever done for their health.
That's why it's the hardest.
For
That's
their
how life
health.
is, isn't it? The
Yes.
hardest things are the things that are best for you.
Yeah, and it is something that you do have to get used to. And I truly will use myself as an example here because, Carrie, I swear on all that is holy that up until a couple years, I can't pinpoint it exactly, but man, I did not eat vegetables. I think we talked about this. Unless I went out to eat, I didn't eat any vegetables. And I also fell victim to the myth that, like, eat more fruits and vegetables. Oh, okay, I'll just eat fruits, and that's like eating vegetables, which is not at all true. Not at all the same. Not at all the same. Don't eat 10 bananas in a day. It's not the same as eating 10 servings of spinach in a day, despite what some YouTube videos will lead us to believe. Anyway, I digress. The consumption of the non-starchy vegetables will seem weird, but you will begin to crave them if you can just stick with it for 3 weeks. We went on vacation recently. This isn't just me. If you go to the Smarter Science Slim Super group, there's all kinds of fun conversations recently, actually, just over the holidays. Of the number one thing I craved over the holidays, because I strayed off my sanity a bit, was my greens. Like, I'm addicted. I think there was a discussion called "Addicted to Kale," where it's like I needed my kale fix. Like, where can I get some kale? Because you will just. People, like, if you grew up in a home where your parents or guardian cooked you something, chances are you have an emotional connection to that food and you start to crave it, even though other people might be like, you crave whatever.
I can't imagine
that.
ever having an emotional connection to kale.
But
however,
I have an emotional connection to my green smoothies, I'll tell you that much.
However, I did invent a few new green smoothies over the holidays, which have a staggering amount of kale in, and one of them particularly is mint chocolate. And it tastes like a mint chocolate shake, and it's got 1/2 pound of kale in it. And
That's
it's awesome.
No, that's awesome.
And the best thing about that one, it's not green.
There you go.
It's brown.
It's
so
a
you don't even
non-green
look
green
like a
smoothie.
weirdo.
Yes. So do you need to eat till you're too full? No. Do you need to eat when you're not hungry? No. Do you need to ensure that you're taking in sufficient non-starchy vegetables and protein? Yes. So don't overfill yourself, but you might need to reorder the order in which you're eating food. And while we're talking about this, there's been quite a bit of talk on the internet, and I think a book just came out that speaks to this, about something called intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is essentially just confined, like it's you only eat for 8 hours. So essentially, for all intents and purposes, you would not eat until noon and then stop eating at 8 p.m. And so you're essentially fasting from 8 p.m. to noon the next day. So you don't eat for 16 hours, you eat for 8 hours. So my thoughts on this, folks. So there's research on both sides. Like there's very interesting research that shows that people who intermittently fast see health and physique benefits. There's also research that shows that when people intermittently fast, as soon as they stop, they go bananas and eat everything in sight. So this is one of those areas where I really think it comes down to you and just seeing what works for you. If you start skipping breakfast and you eat sanely the rest of the day and you stop eating at 8 o'clock and you feel wonderful and you're getting great results, keep it up. If you skip breakfast and you feel terrible for the rest of the day and binging out of your mind in the evening, it's probably not a good idea to do that. So again, is intermittent fasting good?
For some people,
You tell
yes.
me. You tell me, right? The key is not so much focus less on how, this is again, it's a question of how much, when you're eating, how much you're eating. Those are all secondary, if not tertiary, to what you're eating. Whenever you eat, at whatever frequency, if it's sane,
It's all good.
you're doing great. Everything else customized for you. Simple enough.
Awesome.
You like it?
I do. I love that. However,
However, and I also have something else I just thought.
a lot of people are kind of not wired like that, and a lot of people want structure
Tell me what to do.
and tell me what to do and so on and so forth. But again, for those people, they need to figure out what that is and then
Yeah.
structure it themselves, because we can't. There's no one size fits all
Absolutely. I mean,
when it comes to that.
and I love that you brought this up, Carrie, because to say, just tell me what to do, folks, no one knows your body better than you do, right? I mean, that's a bit like, tell me how I can feel happy about my life. It depends. I don't know. You might like different things than I like.
Right,
So
this
it
works for you,
is
this
up
works
to you.
for me. It's
And it doesn't mean, to be clear, I mean, we're all Homo sapiens. Non-starchy vegetables are good for all of us. I mean, there are common threads, but I like to use an analogy for fashion. It's like, what is the best outfit? Kind of depends on what you're doing or where you're going or like how old you are. It varies. However, you probably shouldn't wear your pants on your head and your shirt on your legs. Like, there are common things, and that sanity is the common thing. So don't wear your underwear on your head is basically the takeaway. It also varies on other things that are happening in your life. For example, exercise. Like, if you just like, and it depends on your goals, right? If your goal, let's say your goal is you want to develop some toned muscle. So you want to look good in a strapless top. If you're a woman, or if you're a man, you want to have some biceps, some defined gluteal muscles. I don't know. You just want to look good in your jeans, and you just do an intense eccentric workout. At that point, I would recommend eating frequently, because what the research shows is that when you consume, we talk about 30 grams of protein, you're going to trigger something called muscle protein synthesis. You rebuild your muscles and strengthen them. And that lasts for about 3 hours. So you take 30 grams of protein in, you're in a state of muscle protein synthesis happening. 3 hours later, it basically stops. So this is where, so there is this, it's not a myth, but it's not backed by hard science, that you need to eat every 3 to 4 hours. That is derived from the bodybuilding world, where individuals would always want to keep their body in a state of synthesizing new muscle protein. And that is true. That is a unquestionable scientific fact, that if you eat sufficient doses of protein frequently, your body will synthesize protein. It will synthesize more than if you didn't do that. So if you just performed a intense weightlifting routine and you want to aid your recovery, it is a better idea to eat frequently. But if, for example, I mean, this is just one approach, if people wanted to try it and you want to experiment with intermittent fasting, maybe you do your eccentric workout. Remember, it's just once a week on Mondays, and you eat pretty frequently on Tuesday and Wednesday because you're really hungry, because your body is rebuilding itself. But then as the week goes on, you find that you're not as hungry because your body is more recovered. So maybe you do some intermittent fasting then. And the point I'm trying to make is, it may vary even day by day. Like, maybe one day an intermittent fast works for you because you're not super hungry, and on the next day you're really, really hungry. So again, you just got to listen to yourself. You got to be aware of that context.
Yeah, it is more individual, and I think a lot of people are looking for, the definitive how-to, and I don't think it doesn't work like that for everybody.
And the good news is, a lot of that definitive how-to stuff, a lot of it applies to the minutia.
Right.
I mean, right, if you just follow when you eat, you're good. Now, if you want to like have six-pack abs or fit into the same jeans you wore when you were in high school and then some, hey, then you're gonna have to do a little bit more, and then it might get a little bit more customized. But if you just want to be good to go and feel great, it's pretty much common for everyone. Eat sane, stay active, and exercise intelligently once or twice a week.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is that we can't be definitive because not everybody wants the same result.
Exactly.
If you want to have 8% body fat or you want to be a fitness model or, whatever, you're going to do things differently than I would because I don't want either of those things.
A great
I just
point.
want to look hot.
No, it's a great point, Carrie, because actually those things you just described, having single-digit body percentage, that's a state for people. So if you want to get into an unnatural state, you do have to do unnatural things because your body, for most people,
Will not keep you there automatically.
doesn't want to do that. Like
Yeah.
it's going to fight against having that happen. So it is important to note that just like we say, avoiding obesity can be simple if we understand the science and we just do what we did for hundreds of thousands of years, plus with some tweaks based on modern nutritional science. However, if you want to look like someone on the cover of a magazine, you're going to have to do a bunch of unnatural things to
Right.
put your body in that unnatural state.
Right.
So I think that helps too.
Yep.
All right, Carrie. Well,
So don't get bogged down in the maneuver.
Exactly.
Lovely people.
Don't get bogged down, and also don't let different goals mix you up. Because if someone is telling you, I do all easy stuff and yada yada yada, that's because they have 7% body fat and it's their job.
Right.
It doesn't mean you have to do that. So don't let that
Right.
overwhelm you. So, Carrie, the next question I wanted to cover here involves sanity and being a vegetarian. Because I get a lot of questions here in the Seattle area, especially about can I be sane and be a vegetarian? Did you ever wonder that, Carrie?
No,
No.
never.
Because
Can
you're
you ever
not
imagine
even
me
close to
going,
being a
I'm never
vegetarian."
eating meat again? I'm as closer to flying to the moon under my own power than I am to becoming a vegetarian.
Well, so-
However,
yes.
if people want to be vegetarian, I totally respect that. That's all good. If you can do it and be healthy, fabulous.
Yes. So,
Not my cup of tea.
So the key takeaway here, aside from the fact that Carrie will not be joining the vegetarian ranks anytime soon, is that eating a sane lifestyle is in no way, shape, or form mutually exclusive with other lifestyles, such as being a vegetarian or even being kosher, halal, paleo, all these kinds of things. Sane is just a way to evaluate foods. So if you're a vegetarian, you start with a different set of options than someone who is not a vegetarian, and you just say, in the vegetarian set of options, which are the sanest available to me?
Right.
And it just so happens that sugar is derived from a plant, but it's insane, so vegetarian shouldn't eat that. Starch is derived from a plant, derived from plants, it's insane, you shouldn't eat that. If you don't eat meat, you can eat eggs. Eggs are saying that's good. You could also do the nutrient-dense dairy products we talk about. So the question is not like, can a vegetarian do it? Sanity is just water, fiber, protein, satisfying, aggressive, nutritious, inefficient. Just look at whatever set of foods you start with. If you're kosher and you don't eat pork, then you've just got a smaller starting set, and then you apply the sanity framework on top of it.
Right.
So, can you do it? Absolutely. Should you be a vegetarian? That's not what we're talking about here. Maybe we'll talk about it on a later podcast. I think it's really up to you from a moral perspective. If you want to just talk about the science perspective, and if you want more information on this, I had a dialogue with the author of the China Study, a very popular book about being a vegetarian. We had a wonderful dialogue. You can find the dialogue on the website. It is an arguable fact that there are sane animal foods and sane plant foods. And to make statements such as all plant foods are good for you and all animal foods are bad for you is obviously false, because wheat is a plant and salmon is an animal, and salmon is healthier for you than wheat. There's no question that is true. So, is vegetarianism compatible with sanity? Absolutely. In fact, one of the most compelling success stories we've seen is a woman, again, you can see this up on the website, and we actually wanted to share an update with our listeners here. Her name's Christina. She's in her later 30s, and she was diagnosed diabetic, and she was she was struggling with her weight, and she was also struggling to get pregnant. And her husband had been trying for about 5 years to conceive a child. So they're going sane. She actually has a blog dedicated to her sane lifestyle. And in 3 months, and this is just the beginning of the story, in 3 months she lost 48 pounds. And her story continues that she cured her diabetes. She is no longer on any medication for her diabetes, and her blood sugar is well within the range for being healthy. And come to find out recently that she conceived a child after
That's
5 years
awesome.
of trying. So, and her doctor said point blank, there's no question this is because of the improvements you've seen in your health. And she's a vegetarian. So that's the reason I meant that now. So certainly you can be sane and anything else.
You've got to be happy in your own skin.
Yep.
You have to be. And if eating meat is just not something that you can feel good about inside, emotionally, mentally, then don't. Just find a way to be sane without meat.
Exactly. And the one thing I will mention, just if we have any vegetarian listeners, is just based on the Smarter Science Slim, based on the research, it is going to be harder for you to get the high quality protein. So I would highly recommend, if you do dairy, that would be great. And doing like a whey or a casein supplement would be good. Doing a hemp or pea or rice protein supplement would be good. And maybe get some essential amino acids, because really, I mean, they talk about like if you combine rice and quinoa or whatever, it's a complete protein. Well, sure, but you're also taking in all that other starch, and I mean, the amount of quinoa you need to eat
To get enough protein is just...
you're gonna overeat. Either you're gonna be too full to eat your non-starchy vegetables, or it's just not. So just supplement your diet in some way there, because you're not gonna have access to the highly concentrated and high quality complete sources of protein that you would find otherwise. But again, it's definitely doable. So Carrie, artificial sweeteners also always comes up. Like, what's the deal with artificial sweeteners? Can I eat artificial sweeteners? What's the deal with sweeteners in general? I know you like xylitol. It's not an artificial sweetener.
It's not an artificial sweetener.
So what are your thoughts?
Birch bark is where it's at.
It's all about birch bark, yum.
So, what are my thoughts on sweeteners? Why people do ask me why I use xylitol and why I don't use stevia and truvia and all that other stuff. So, the only time I use artificial sweeteners is that I have some recipes where I use the sugar-free syrups, the kind of sugar-free syrups you would find at Starbucks or a coffee shop that they use to flavor coffee with.
Yep.
So those sugar-free syrups, there's a few recipes where I use that. However, before everybody gets wildly excited about artificial sweeteners,
we're all gonna get cancer if we carry these recipes.
if you look at the label, the sucralose that's in them, it's the last ingredient, which means it's the smallest. There's less sucralose in there than anything else.
Yep.
So there is a tiny amount of sucralose in there to start with, and then we're only adding a tiny amount of the syrup to my recipes. So the amount you're ingesting is tiny.
Yep.
So that's why I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And of course, you don't eat those recipes every day.
Exactly.
So the amount you're ingesting is tiny. So I'm good with that. Outside of that, we want to find natural sweeteners, not artificial ones.
That are non-caloric.
Stevia
Very important non-caloric.
tastes disgusting to me. It's horrible. You can taste it. It has an aftertaste. Truvia is the same. I mean, just it tastes nasty. So that kind of... plus, the other thing with that is they provide sweetness. They provide the bulk or the other attributes, particularly to baked goods, that sugar does.
They're not a baker's friendly. They're almost like they're almost like a flavoring.
They are almost like, so they're great for sweetening your coffee. If you don't care about the aftertaste, then they're great for that. But for baking, they're just difficult as well as tasting nasty. So then I was looking for something that would replace the other attribute and the other chemical attributes of sugar. And so that kind of puts us down to erythritol and xylitol. And xylitol tastes much more like sugar, or actually just much as neutral. It's just sweet. It doesn't really have there's some there, you could try it, John.
Yes.
I brought you some in.
She did bring me some.
Whereas erythritol to me has an aftertaste, and it has a weird... I just preferred the taste of xylitol over erythritol. However, they are now making stevia with fillers so that you can replace it in baking.
Yep.
However, one of my blog readers kindly did a lot of research on this for us and discovered that the stevia one, the filler, was maltodextrin, it was crazy.
Insane.
It was completely insane.
Nice.
So I'm sticking with my xylitol. because you can replace it 1-for-1 for sugar, and in baking it works just like sugar. So that's my take. However, again,
If you say however
xylitol.
one more time.
Xylitol. There's xylitol and there's xylitol. So we have to, it's, the manufacturers are just mean, sneaky people. I'm sorry,
They're in the
they just
business of
are.
making money. They're not in the
And
business
so
of
there's
health.
a brand called, so I use Xyla. The brand I use is Xyla. XYLA. The reason I use that is because it's made from birch bark. You'll find that there's people manufacturing xylitol out of corn. Well, we don't want that. We want birch bark. So Xyla, there is another brand that another reader wrote to me about, and it was just, it was mad. If you started looking at the way they processed it and what it was made of, it was a completely different animal to the xylitol I use. So be careful.
Yep.
All xylitol is not good. You want the birch, the xylitol that's made of birch bark. That's it.
There it
That's
is.
all I have to say.
That's all that Carrie has to say. So I've got a few things to say too here. So,
What a surprise.
well, it would be a boring podcast.
It's a minefield out there. It really
is
is.
a mine- well,
and the stevia with filler, which turned out to be maltodextrin, was just like unbelievable. It was just
Yep.
you have to be really, really careful. You have to read the labels. You go on the websites and check out all these different brands, because there's more and more brands coming on the market all the time, because there's more and more people moving away from sugar.
More Saniacs.
Don't
People go insane.
Don't just look at the label and go, it's natural and it's got no sugar and it's all good. It might not be.
Absolutely. Okay, especially, so I'm going to emphasize Carrie's point right there of it's all natural. May have said this before, but agave nectar? Okay, so let me just, before I go on my agave nectar rant. So Carrie's spot on, right? So natural, non-caloric. Non-caloric is key. Natural, non-caloric, you need both, are fine. What you'll find is the longer you go sane, the more sweet things just become. So you will naturally use less of any kind of sweetener because your palate will become more sensitive to sweetness. Think about it like someone who's never drank alcohol, right? If you drink alcohol all the time, you need more alcohol. If you never drink alcohol, you need less. Same thing applies with sweeteners. But if you are going to use sweeteners, non-caloric, natural. So like Carrie said, the non-caloric, unnatural ones are things like Sweet and Low, Equal, I can't think of the other one. Oh, Splenda.
Sucralose, yes.
Yeah, Splenda. Which again, those are better than caloric sweeteners, even if the caloric sweetener is natural, but I wouldn't recommend them. But if your choice is between drinking a Coke or drinking a Diet Coke, there's no question that the Diet Coke is better for you. It absolutely is. And there's no question that a carbonated beverage that was sweetened with good erythritol would be better for you than the Diet Coke. Now, natural sweeteners. This is the biggest load. I can't curse because I've ever heard in my entire life. Your body does not care where glucose or sucrose or it's sugar. Your body only understands sugar. So it doesn't matter if it's honey or if it's table sugar or if it's agave nectar, it's still horrible for you. And actually, I'm going to contradict myself because it kind of does matter because, for example, high fructose corn syrup, which everyone thinks is so bad for them, and rightly so, it is terrible for you, has, for example, more fructose in it. But if you look at agave nectar, it's 90% fructose. And folks, here's how it's marketed to us. Fructose doesn't raise your blood sugar. So blue agave nectar is marketed as a low glycemic, all natural sweetener. Good for diabetics. With it, everything that makes high fructose corn syrup bad for you it's even worse in agave nectar. And the fact that agave and fructose more generally doesn't stimulate insulin is a bad thing, not a good thing, because it blunts the insulinic response. It also blunts the release of leptin and your leptin sensitivity. These are hormones that your body releases in response to you eating food to help you feel full. So if you don't release them, you don't feel full. And that's why you can drink 600 calories of soda and then go eat a Big Mac, whereas if you ate 600 calories of food, you would be too full for the Big Mac because your brain isn't perceiving the fructose as food, which is just startling. So even if it's natural, sweeteners are a bad bad thing if they're caloric. They're not good for you if they're non-caloric and unnatural, and they're okay for you if they're natural and non-caloric. Make sense?
Are you done?
I'm done.
So talk to us about this whole glycemic index thing.
Just talk about the glycemic index?
Yeah, because they talk about that a lot, right? I mean, for example, coconut sugar. So that's another thing that's or coconut, whatever they call it. Have you seen it in the
Flour?
stores? No, coconut.
Oh, I don't know.
It's made from the sap of coconuts.
Okay.
Anyway, so that is put out there as a natural sweetener.
It's insane.
With a very low glycemic index.
Doesn't-
Why is that not a good thing?
Just so having a low glycemic index in and of itself is in some ways irrelevant, right? We're
So
looking
talk
at
to us about that, because
Sure. So that's fine.
I'm sure there's a million people out there that are confused about that, because we now hear about it's all about the zone diet. I think was like hit on your glycemic index. So talk to us about that.
Well, I mean, we talked about it extensively in the Smarter Science Slim. Aggression is all about the impact food has on your insulin response, which is your glycemic index, glycemic load. But we don't talk about eating a diet. We talk about eating a sane diet. We have to look at all four factors. We have to look at satiety, we have to look at aggression, we have to look at nutrition and efficiency. So glycemic index, glycemic load have to do with aggression. And all things equal, yes, we do want to eat a lower glycemic load is better than a higher glycemic load, because it's going to cause our blood sugar to rise more slowly and more consistently, which is good because we don't want to see spikes in our blood sugar. Excuse me. However, just saying that because something is low glycemic, it's good for you is a lie. I don't know how to pronounce this, where I always screw it up, like semolina. See, the thing they make pasta out of has a very low glycemic index, very low. Like if you compare it to carrots, you'd be like, I should definitely eat that. However, it's completely insane. So it's good in one factor, but it's bad in the other three. That is absolutely the case with agave nectar. And I'm not super familiar with this coconut thing, but if it is a sweetener and it is caloric, I would steer away from it. My personal opinion. Even if it's low glycemic, that in and of itself does not make food healthy for you. These are all just taglines, right? All natural, low glycemic, low fat. Any food that makes a health, I think Michael Pollan said this. If you see a health claim on packaging, be suspicious. If you see packaging, be suspicious. But if you see a health claim on packaging, be suspicious. So that's what I have to say about low glycemic. And
So it's better, but
yeah, the key is water, fiber, protein, and sanity. Everything else is a distraction that can be used to make you go insane unknowingly.
okay.
Make sense?
Yep.
Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, Carrie Brown, Jonathan Baylor, we're living the smarter science of Slim. We're eating more, we're exercising less, we're doing it smarter. We'll see you next week.
Wait, don't stop listening yet. If you like the podcast and if there's other ways we can help you, please join us in the Smarter Science of Slim support group, which is freely available at the Smarter Science of Slim website, smarterscienceofslim.com. There you'll find all kinds of free recipes and success stories and just all kinds of fun stuff, like how to help your kids go sane and just great community content.
And just one last thing before you go, if you wouldn't mind heading over to iTunes and up onto Amazon.com and leaving us a review, and then going over to Facebook and liking us, we would hugely appreciate it.